Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings, the first one for 2023. This is our third shot at attempting to start this show. I keep getting tongue-tied. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy 2023. And we are starting the year with the first roundtable of the year. And joining us is our usual suspects, one missing. Len Aberman couldn't make it, so we have a special pinch hitter guest for him. But his co-host, Jeff Cohen of Baseball and BBQ is here. Jeff, welcome to the roundtable.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And also joining me, a guy who started this podcast with me way back in 2010, Mr. Barry Newman. Barry?
Hey, Gav. Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah, to you, Barry. And our special pinch hitter needs no fanfare or announcement. I don't know. You've seen him before on here. He's got his own great Mets podcast called Subway To Shea. His name is Anthony Rivera. Anthony, welcome back to Mets Musings.
Gary, thank you for having me on again. Happy New Year's, fellas.
Yeah. And if you did not hear the news, Carlos Correa will not be a Met this year as he has agreed to a deal with the Twins pending a physical, which could open up a whole new can of worms for the whole thing. Jeff, your thoughts on the whole Correa mess?
Well, it might be a blessing in disguise. Obviously, we needed Correa's bat to protect Alonso in the lineup. We're in the same position as we were 3 weeks ago. It's still plan A and plan B. We still got Escobar still there, Beatty's still there. It would have been nice to have that nice big bat behind Alonso, yes, but still, it happened. Not going to go 12 years. It might be a blessing in disguise. Why go all? Twins signed him for 6 years. The Mets offer 12, and there's probably negotiating going there, saying we'll give you this, and with opt-outs and extensions and maybe thresholds to hit. Apparently, they didn't agree on that. They took the Twins deal, which is fine. My only question is, why couldn't the Mets offer that same deal that the Twins got? But who knows what goes on behind closed doors.
Anthony, your thoughts on this whole fiasco?
Thank goodness it's over. I mean, I've had enough of the last 3 weeks of just sitting through tweets and reporting, fake rumors, verified tweets that weren't even real. Enough was enough. I'm glad that it's just over with. I said that, I wouldn't buy anything until I got the tweet from Jeff Passan. He made a tweet today, and now Correa is a Twin. And I'm disappointed, just like a lot of other Met fans, but this doesn't break my heart. This one doesn't tear me apart like what happened with Jacob deGrom. This was more of a luxury. Carlos Correa would have been more of a luxury piece. It's like, oh man, we got Carlos Correa too. Awesome. Now that we don't have him, I'm okay. And I know that a lot of Met fans are upset because they felt like this was the piece that was going to put them over to the top to the World Series, and maybe it was, but it's not the end of the world. They still won 101 games without him, and they put together the same team that they did last season, except with a few tweaks. So we'll see what happens moving forward, and you gotta be excited for what we do have with the Mets going on, and I fully back if they go with Eduardo Escobar and Brett Beatty at third base. It's all about the name in the front. That's the most important thing.
I think you make a good point, Anthony, that it was a piece, but it wasn't like the 86 team needed Gary Carter. That was the final piece of the puzzle. this puzzle is not that off. It's not that bad. Yes, they could use another bat or whatever, but yeah, I don't think it's heartbreaking. Barry, I know you weren't in favor of the deal from the beginning. How about your thoughts?
Let's just say I was never in love with the signing from the start. It never made sense to me to give that player, a very good player, but certainly not in the Mike Trout category, 12 years at $350 million, and put him at a position that he's never played in the major leagues. It just never made sense to me. Also, the fact that Lindor endorsed him, well, he endorsed Javi Baez, and we know how that turned out. Also, to me, the Mets need to be more like the Atlanta Braves, and instead of buying every free agent just because they have the money and the owner to do it, lock up their own players, lock up Alonso, lock up McNeil, and finally, even though I'm thrilled that we no longer have the Wilpons as our owners, and it is Uncle Stevie, just because they have the money to spend on anybody and everybody doesn't mean they should. I never wanted the Mets to become the Steinbrenner Yankees of the late 70s and early 80s. So when all is said and done, the Mets did win 101 games. And basically, the team that putting on the field for 2023 is about the same as the team they put on the field for 2022. The players that they brought in are replacing players like Verlander is in for DeGrom, David Robertson is in for Lugo, Senga is in for Bassett, Quintana is in for Tyon Walker, and they re-signed Nemo, they re-signed Edwin Diaz, so they're going to come into 2023 with a pretty good team. And as we all know, and if we didn't know, the Phillies certainly showed us last year, the playoffs are a crapshoot. The Mets could be 160-2 going into the postseason. They'll still start out 0-0. Could they use another batter? Of course they could. And they still could get one. Maybe not on the level of Correa, but to me, it just never made sense, at least to get that player. There are other players out there that will fit them and will help them, and I'm sure we'll talk about that over the next few minutes.
Yeah, well, you bring up an excellent point there about getting other players, but also the point about spending the money. I'm not convinced. Well, obviously spending the money now, but I'm not convinced it's a Steinbrenner type of spend. I'm almost convinced, and anybody can jump in if they have a differing opinion or whatever, but I'm almost of the opinion that he is spending the money now to bridge until some of the minor league players are ready to come of age. And not, I mean, there's, especially in the pitching staff now, in a few years, they expect this guy, Blake Tidwell, I think it is, and Matt Allen's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and there's a couple of other guys that they're very high on that are at possibly, I think, high A or going into double A, and I think that's what he's doing now. That's what they're looking at, and when I say he, I mean Cohen. Looking at bridging that gap, and he wants to win now. I mean, he also wants to win now, but I think they're looking to bridge that gap. They could lose Scherzer next year. He'll probably opt out of his contract. He hasn't opted out for the third year after 2 years. I'm sure he'll exercise that option. Do they sign him again next year? I don't. What the heck kind of money is he going to want? But they have Verlander to overlap, and they have Senga to overlap, and they have Quintana to overlap a year. And I think that's what they're trying to do: bridge the gap to 2024, 2025, and hope that their pitchers that they're very high on are ready to go at that point. Anybody can jump right in if you agree, disagree, or whatever.
Yeah, they've only given out 2 huge deals, right? The Francisco Lindor, which is what 10 years now left over on the contract, and the Brandon Nimmo contract, which is about 8 years. But everything else has been short. Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, 2 years. Even Starling Marte, 4 years. That's not a big deal. Also, the pitchers you mentioned, Scherzer's got to opt out after this year. Verlander, 2-year, 3-year deal. The Senga deal is a 5-year deal, but with an opt out in the 3rd year. So the Mets are going to be able to continue to rotate players until the farm system is kind of right? Because they're starting to build this farm system. It was torn apart. That's why the Mets didn't make any trades last year. The farm system was torn apart. We have about 3 or 4 legit big-time prospects. Francisco Alvarez is one of them, and Brett Beatty was the other one in the top 100 of all of Major League. People forget this. This is of all Major League Baseball. There are that many Major League prospects better than some of the stuff that we have in our top 10. And that's why other teams wanted more from us. When people get upset that we didn't get David Robertson at the trade deadline, well, the other prospect was better than giving them a Mark Vientos or someone else. If you're not going with Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty, you really weren't going to get anything at the trade deadline. And the Mets didn't want to give up anything in their top 20. That's what Billy Epler said. That was in their own top 20. So if he's not going to do any of that, they weren't going to get more than a Darren Ruff out of the trade deadline.
Anthony is spot on. He's absolutely right. The Mets don't have a lot of depth in the minor leagues. I mean, besides Alvarez and Beatty, I mean, Kevin Parada is just just drafted him last year. So, I mean, he's number 3 on the Mets list, but who knows where he is in all of baseball. But Ronnie Mauricio, as you said, Gary, he is tearing it apart in the Dominican League this past season. But I think he would be probably the most likely minor leaguer to go in a trade, maybe at the trade deadline when you need another bat or something. He might be the one most likely to go because he has no position to be at, especially if Brett Beatty takes over third base full time. Pitchers they look kind of weak. I mean, we know last year what happened with what's his name? Someone help me out. Rocker. He didn't that fell through
Rocker.
again.
Yeah,
with medicals. But, Blake Tidwell coming, Calvin Ziegler, who's supposed to come, Matt Allen, who's been injury prone since the first time they drafted him. He's slated, looks like on their prospect ranking, he's slated for 2024, 2025. So he's a couple years away. But yeah, they really need to rev up their pitching in the minor leagues. That's why they have the short-term deals for Scherzer, for Verlander. You get these guys, you're right, to bridge when the minor leagues finally come to fruition.
Barry, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go on with what you guys said. I have no issue with the short-term deals, but there is still a part of me that wants to see more homegrown players in the Mets lineup, and we'll see. Time will tell. I'm not as familiar with their lower minor league system and players as you guys are. They're the players the names that we know, the Beattys, the Vientos, the Mauricios, Alvarez certainly look like they will have a shot to be solid major leaguers, and I hope the Mets give them an opportunity, which is another reason why I was so against the signing of Correa, because basically that blocked Brett Beatty, and I'm sure he's pretty happy today that the deal fell through, because now he should get a pretty good shot to at least stick on the big league roster, if not be the third baseman for the Mets in 2023.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether or not he has a good spring. And, he did have surgery on his thumb. So we'll see if that's should be healed, I guess, by spring training time. But we'll see if it bothers him at all. It was on his right throwing hand. You mentioned Jeff Mauricio. Interesting thing there in that I believe, and and correct me if I'm wrong. In the Winter League, he's either playing a lot of outfield or second base, and moving around a little bit. Could that be a possibility for the Mets to perhaps move eventually a Nimmo to left field and put in a Mauricio in center field, or moving a Mauricio to second base and using a McNeil as a potential trade bait? I mean, we're all speculating here, and it could sound stupid now, but you never know with the contracts the way they are, and really with the luxury tax through the roof here, almost at $500 million. I think it's what, 400 million with the luxury tax he's going to have to pay this year, the payroll. The trades that they could make or not make, what do you think about some of these guys rotating around at different positions?
I'm not
jump.
I'm not a big fan of rotating positions. I mean, I know it's been done in the past. I know there's been Hall of Famers who've done it, who moved positions, but that's really late in their career. I like the young guys to stay in one position where they're comfortable. And Ronnie Mauricio, who started as a shortstop, but he grew so much. I don't think he's has a body type for shortstop or second base. Maybe third, but to put him in the outfield, where I think he struggled down in the minor leagues, which is the best place to struggle would be down in the minor leagues.
Mm-hmm.
You hate to see that struggle in the major leagues. But again, I think he would be the first trade piece to go if they were to make the trade in the at the trade deadline. And who knows who's available? We have to see what's happening with all the other teams. I mean, there's teams that could do who could be prospectively do very well. Could have injuries. They start off badly. They don't get their wheels going. So who knows what's going to be available come the trade deadline.
Anybody else?
This is a good, conversation, even going back to what Barry was saying about locking up your homegrown players. And, I do think if they're going to lock up one of their homegrown players, it's going to be Pete Alonso. I think he's the one that's going to get the big deal. You think about Jeff McNeil now, and look at what he provides, right? He's very versatile. He could play second base. He could play the outfield. I think he's the best guy to go back and forth between, second base and the outfield. But, that may make him more expendable, right? He's a lot older. He'll probably command a shorter term deal. And I'm thinking in the terms of kind of what Daniel Murphy got when he went to Washington, in a little, 3 or 4 year deal. I think that will be, by the time McNeil becomes a free agent, that's the kind of deal that he will get. And, McNeil is a better, all around hitter than what Daniel Murphy did. Daniel Murphy got hot at the last end of his Mets career, because before that he was an okay, decent player, but he didn't provide what Jeff McNeil could provide. So he may be trade bait eventually. I don't think it's going to be now, but if you're looking to improve, you may be able to get some good pieces if you traded Jeff McNeil. I prefer to keep him, but he might be the one. If you're looking at any of the major league roster, he may be the one that gets traded eventually, especially when you have a Ronnie Mauricio floating around there and playing different positions. So you never know.
Barry, thoughts?
I'd like to see the Mets go into 2023, add a piece here and there, maybe a righty DH outfield, fourth outfielder type to split the DH role with Vogelback, and maybe pick up a lefty pitcher for the pen. A guy like an Andrew Chapin is still out there. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the team. They did win 101 games last year, and maybe wait till we get closer to the trading deadline and see what's out there. And then you have a Mauricio or maybe a Vientos or maybe somebody in the lower minors that you could put into a deal for a piece that you really need. As far as Jeff McNeil is concerned, I said it for years, and it turns out that I was wrong, and I'm happy that I was, but I never liked the idea of him going back and forth from the infield to the outfield. But he's proven it over the past couple of years that he can handle it with no problem at all. So he's a valuable player on the Mets, and we'll see down the road. But it would be hard for me to just think of a defending National League batting champion as part of a trade. I mean, he's a big part of this team. And along with Alonso, he's the type of guy the Mets should try to lock up.
Well, we did trade a Cy Young Award winner for a few years back in R.A. Dickey. So I guess anything is game nowadays in this sport. But we talked about how a lot of the people that they did sign so far are sort of replacements for guys that are left. Guys that left, I should say, or threatened to leave, if you will, with the Nimmo or Diaz had an opportunity to leave and they stayed and signed new contracts. Is this team as it's constituted now as good or better than the team last year? For instance, is Quintana better than a Bassett or Walker in the lineup, in the rotation? Is Senga gonna be better than the same two guys? Is Verlander gonna be as good as DeGrom? Odds are, I'd say that was a wash. But is this team as good as the team that won 101 games next year? And there's no way of knowing, of course. But on paper, let's just say, is this a stronger team than we had last year?
I can tell you this: they're stronger at catcher. Just it's an upgrade for Narvaez just to take the place of McCann, who McCann never just worked out. I mean, I hope he does well in Baltimore, but it just didn't work out for him in New York. Mm-hmm. I know he's very charitable and great for the community, but just as a player on the team, he just didn't. And I thought his defensive was not as great as they thought it was going to be. I saw a lot of pass balls and thought that he was better defensively. So Narvaez is a good pickup. I think he'll be better than just hitting. Anybody can hit better than McCann. And I think Narvaez and Nito will be a good apprentice. Help Alvarez. Come into the major league. Teach him the nuances of catching. And like I said, I think Alvarez should be on the team the whole year because I like to have a third catcher. He can DH from the right side and just be able to catch the pitchers in the bullpen, just to know what kind of stuff they're throwing to get comfortable in the bullpen rather than in the real game. So I hope Alvarez sticks on the team the whole year. Although I can see him go to minor league just to at the beginning.
Yeah, I think he should start the season in the minors and play every day, and then as the season unfolds, then maybe you bring him up. What they did last year was really not fair to him, to bring him up for that last series in Atlanta. That move I didn't understand at the time. I still don't. But Jeff, I agree with you. The Mets definitely upgraded the catching position with Narvaez and Nito, more than likely splitting the time. As you said, James McCann was an absolute bust as a Met. Even defensively, we had heard he was a solid defensive catcher, and he was anything but while he was a Met. So just on that, the team is better. As a whole, I guess a lot of it will depend on Senga, because you just never know with these Japanese pitchers. He could be Yu Darvish, or he could be Hideki Irabu. We'll see soon enough.
Yeah, this team winning 101 games last year, it is extremely difficult to win 100 games in a season. They've done it 4 times in 60 years. 4. So I see them taking a step back only because they've won this 100 games. I thought even if they brought back the team as is, right, the team that won the 101 games, I thought that that team was going to take a step back. And now even with these new guys, I mean, There's going to be obviously some change going around with the pitching staff and the bullpen. So they may not win 100 games. Maybe they'll win 98 games or 95 games. I thought that there were better teams other years, like the 99 team or the 2006 team. Those teams didn't even get to 100 wins. So I do think the team is going to take a step back, not as bad as what people think. They're going to play everyone in Major League Baseball next season, so we don't have to play the Braves 300 times. We don't have to pay the Phillies, and the Marlins don't have to ruin our lives for the times we play them. They're going to play everybody. And we get to play those stinky teams out in, like the Oakland Athletics and half of the Central that doesn't participate, unlike the Cardinals and sometimes the Cubs and Milwaukee does. They're going to get to play all these teams, and everyone else is going to do the same thing. So it's not just, the Mets are going to have to play, Houston and the Yankees and the Dodgers. Everyone is going to play them in the division. So it might be a little change. It might be for the better. And what we saw with the Phillies is that you can still get in third place and still make it to the World Series. So like Barry said earlier, what matters is how hot you are going into the postseason.
I heard a great saying you're not buying a pennant. You're shopping for a pennant. Yeah. Because you never know what's going to happen. And just getting to the playoffs is the hottest team is going to come out. Just like the Phillies did.
Yeah, and the Phillies made some moves that could help them in the regular season. They shored up their bullpen, which was a terrible in the beginning of the season. They did tighten it up by the end of the year and in the playoffs especially, but they've shored that up, and they signed help me here, Turner,
yeah, and Walker
to solidify their
the good point was that what Anthony made, we only played him 13 times. They can't
kill us
19 times.
Didn't they also sign the closer from
that's right,
the Dodgers?
Kimbrel, yeah.
Kimbrel.
Yeah.
Kimbrel.
Yeah.
So that'll be nice to play against him every so often.
Although the Marlins did sign Met killer Gene Segura. He always kills the Mets. But only for 13.
Mets were waiting for Dom Smith to have his triumphant
exactly
return
right.
Washington, so
that's right.
It's going to be fun times in the NL East.
But only 13 times, so.
Yeah, and the only problem with that is we're going to see Met killers on all of the other teams too that could come back to haunt us. We may even see Jacob deGrom.
Once in August.
My guess, August. Well, he might be back from an injury by then.
Right.
So, you never know with him. Well,
the
Billy
Guardians
Epler
come
has
to Citi Field the third week of May. So mark your calendar for that series.
Okay. And where did Syndergaard went to the Dodgers?
Dodgers.
Yeah. Back out to I guess he liked it out in LA.
Yeah.
Well, they needed someone to replace Trevor Bauer. So
right. Who's available, by the way? Just saying. I'm not going to get him, but I think someone will. But but that's not a story.
You know what? I think you're gonna by the trading deadline. Let's say somebody's gonna pick him up. I think.
Yeah.
Somebody will need.
Someone's gonna be desperate for pitching,
and they will take a chance and sign him and. Either tie him up after every game so he
and hold their nose
and warn the women folk to keep the doors locked at night.
One thing I was listening yesterday, and there was a report. The new rules for the pitching. They have 15 seconds when nobody on base and 20 seconds when someone is on base. I heard that maybe there's 400 pitches. I think maybe 30 are pitchers who can pitch, who are used to pitching with 15 seconds and less. So, this is this could be interesting adjustment.
Well, maybe it's better for us that we did not sign Chris Bassett then, because he took forever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Imagine Steve Traxler with these rules.
Yeah.
Forget it. That'll be interesting to see as well, because we could lengthen the games with all of these. They're doing this to shorten the game, or is the thing now to shorten the games or to quicken the pace of the action? I'm confused with what they're trying to do now.
I think to quicken the pace. Although I think that rule where the pitcher only has 2 disengagements from the rubber, and the third time they have to pick them off, or where it's a balk, I think that's going to be tweaked maybe mid-season. I mean, that's just so unfair. You have that mind game, that cat and mouse game with the runner on first. I mean, how
Yeah,
he knows after 2 pickup throw, he's going.
that's right.
Yeah,
it's going to put a lot more pressure on the catchers,
and the bases are going to be bigger too.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing, because it'll give the game with a little more action, these true outcomes. It's a bit much for me. And I mean, still baseball, still the national pastime. And along with now I guess the shift is no longer allowed, so players will actually have to, at some point, which they should be doing already, learn to hit to the opposite field. But now it's not as much of a necessity with shift being outlawed. I mean, I had no problem with the shift. It should have been the players adjusting to it instead of just doing away with it. I really don't understand why they felt the need to do that. And I definitely think that the pace of the game needs to be picked up. How this rule with the only being able to throw over the first base twice, well, I don't get that one either. But I guess we'll see how it unfolds before passing any judgment on it. But I don't like it.
I'm befuddled by the bigger bag. I don't see the point behind it. They're changing the coatings on the bag, which they needed to do, because those bags are ridiculous in wet weather. They're so slippery. But if anything, what they should have done is put a base on first base. They should have put one in foul ground, and just kept it the same. So actually the distance is not going to be 90 feet anymore, correct? I mean, it's going to be whatever.
I think it's still 90 feet. I think they measured from the middle of the base to the middle of the base, so it's still 90 feet, but in no practicality it's not.
Yeah. Well, Billy Epler has definitely gone out and done some job in the off season. Do we want to grade the front office so far this offseason to what they've done and accomplished so far? I think you got to give them pretty much a B+ or an A- so far. They filled all the holes, and I'm not all the holes that they had, but the key holes. They had to fill that rotation. They had to sign Nimmo to fill the center field spot and the leadoff spot. In my estimation, that was probably the biggest signing of the offseason, even though he just, came back. But they had to do that. And any thoughts on that, Anthony? You want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm in agreement, right around, A-, B+. I mean, look at how quickly they pivoted after losing Jacob deGrom. We were all upset all weekend long about Jacob deGrom, and Monday they have Justin Verlander. And, minus how old he is, because that was my concern, him getting up there, right around 40 now, and how much can he continue to produce the way he does. But he is a Cy Young Award winner. He's a world champion. And I thought it was a great ad in bringing him in. It wasn't the route that I was wanting to go. I wanted DeGrom back, but I understand the whole situation. And, at least we got Verlander out of it. And, in past years, who were we going to get? Maybe Johnny Cueto or something to be the top end starter. So the Mets pivoted and they got the next best option, right? Because he's was the top guy out there in free agency for the rotation. They didn't bring back Taijuan Walker. They went out and got Jose Quintana. They didn't bring back Bassett. They got Senga. Like you said, they got everything they needed to get done because they had a whole lot of work this offseason. They had to replace 4/5 of the rotation. They had to rebuild the bullpen, and they had to bring back Brandon Nimmo or get another offensive piece that was going to replace his production. And instead, they brought him back, which I'm extremely happy about. And I think he will, just having him be that long-term Met, which I thought it was going to be DeGrom, having it be Nimmo, who was, the more and more you look at what Nimmo has done in New York, the more he's more of a New Yorker than Jacob DeGrom was. If you look through his career and you've seen the things he's done off the field too, he behaves more of a New Yorker than Jacob did. And, not to saying that being quiet is not there, but you can tell everything that had happened since all the news that we heard on Jacob DeGrom leading up to this. And, even after he signed, he didn't really want to be here, but Nimmo wanted to be here. So, that was very important where they go. And then going to try to get Carlos Correa, I saw some people on Twitter say, bring back the Wilpons just because they didn't get Carlos Correa. I mean, he would not have even been involved in getting Carlos Correa in the first place. So, I mean, I know a lot of Met fans are disappointed, but, to go back and want the Wilpons back or saying LOL Mets. I mean, also the Giants didn't sign him to a 13-year deal, and they were lauded for that, for not giving this injured player this big mega deal. But when the Mets do it, it's LOL Mets. So it's just a crazy thing. Billy Epler, like I said, A-, B+, but the real test for him is at the trade deadline. What is he going to be able to do at the trade deadline? Because last year wasn't too good. And that's where I'm going to grade him, eventually. So how he pieces together the rest of the bullpen, how he pieces together the bench, and how he does at the trade deadline is the real importance, because getting the big ticket items is easy when you have the richest owner in baseball.
Barry?
Yeah, B+ is about where I would put the grade for the Mets off-season acquisitions. Like you guys said, and I'll double down on it as well. The players they lost were replaced with players of equal or maybe even a little better ability. Senga's a key as the replacement, I guess, is now he would be considered the third star. If he's the goods, then I think the Mets they're in pretty good shape anyway. I mean, they do win 101 games. And like you guys said, the bullpen could use another arm or two. The lefty from the Rays, who had a really good season, and I won't even try to pronounce his name, but you know who I mean. A second lefty in the pen would certainly be helpful. Would be helpful to them. I mentioned Chapin, and I even saw something a little while ago where they were looking at the possibility of bringing Zach Britton in, and he hasn't pitched in forever, but on a short term, maybe 1 year deal, wouldn't be the worst move. And yeah, they could use another bat like you guys have been saying, but it doesn't have to be Carlos Correa, a righty fourth outfielder, righty DH, maybe a Trey Mancini or possibly an Adam Duvall would be a nice acquisition. And Anthony, I heard you say you saw on Twitter that there were people that were tweeting that they wanted the Wilpons brought back, and I have sworn that I would never open a Twitter account, but just to see that makes me want to possibly rethink that.
Yeah, people going all out of their minds on Twitter. I mean, they were going really irrational stuff. I mean, Cohen is a jerk. He should have done this. Please. It didn't work out. Happens.
And they were doing due diligence on a guy who's possibly injury prone.
Yeah.
They weren't going to spend 12 years. You want to give 12 to 13 years on a guy who's definitely not going to make it that term. I know people were afraid of giving like Lindor this deal or giving somebody, but this is a guy who has an injury history, and you're going to give him that deal. And the Mets said, hey, we'll still give you 6 years, 100 and something mil. What was it, 167 or 175 in between that little range right there? And he instead wanted to take the extra, 12 mil to go to a team that he's going to be the centerpiece. And as soon as they make it to the playoffs, the Yankees are going to eliminate them like
Exactly.
every
Like they always do. Like they always do. Yeah, you know what?
Sorry, Jeff. I think it was
Okay.
Kevin Kernan that I just retweeted right now that said even last season that the Twins were there was 9 teams better than the Twins, and that was with Carlos Correa on the roster. So, I mean, good luck to them because, him coming to the Mets and let's say he got hurt. Yeah, maybe it would affect the Mets for a little bit, but you go to the Twins and getting hurt might mess up that organization for a decade. So good luck to that.
Exactly. And I was going to say that I would give also Billy Epler, A-, B+. I mean, he did sign Danny Meddick. He was that I guess I really don't know much about Danny Meddick. I know he got about $1 million offer, and I think he's just a backup piece in the minor leagues just in case. But I think a fourth outfielder. By the way, right now on the Mets depth chart, they do have Khalil Lee on the 40-man roster, which I guess if they brought in not Darren Ruff, Adam Duvall or Trey Mancini, I guess he would be the one to go off.
They did bring in the LeCastro too the other day, right? Tim LeCastro.
Yeah,
yes.
Tim LeCastro.
Yeah, I think he's on a minor league. He's on the minor league.
On a minor league deal.
Mm-hmm.
He might factor in as a Terrence Gore type.
He
who can actually hit a little bit.
And with the bigger bases, stolen base is going to be back in vogue, as they say.
Good old time baseball. That's what I like.
Although I do have one prediction. Without the shift, I think with left-handed batters, I have a feeling you're going to see the left fielder move toward center or in short right field. Just because that wasn't outlawed, was it? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I know the infielders have to be on either side of the base and on the dirt.
Well,
but I don't know about the outfielders.
I'm not sure because they did. I think you have to have like 4 fielders or 3, whatever it is, on a certain side. So that might
in the infield. I don't know. Maybe in the outfield.
I think it's just in general.
Oh, okay. We'll see.
I'm not sure.
If anybody, Tampa Bay is going to try to experiment with that.
We also have, let's talk a little bit about baseball in general. We also have the Hall of Fame vote coming up, and again, the controversy is going to rage. I noticed, I forget who it was now. Somebody put their vote, publicized it. I believe it was on Twitter, and I wish I remember who was it. Ken Rosenthal. Anyway, he only voted for 2 guys, and again, you can vote in order, I think, or you just check off who you want, but you have the opportunity there to vote for 10 guys. Why not take it instead of not? But anyway, that being said, anybody have any predictions or people they'd like to see get in?
I mean, Carlos Beltran. Looking at the rest of this new 2023 class, anyone outside of Carlos Beltran, I don't think is going to make it. Matt Cain, Dickey, Ellsbury, definitely not. Bronson Arroyo, Andre Ethier, none of these guys. Francisco Rodriguez, I don't think was a great enough closer long enough. I think it's just Carlos Beltran out of that list that would, to me, make it to the Hall of Fame. And I know that there's this issue with what happened in Houston, so I don't know how much that's going to factor into people voting. But I don't understand, why are all of these writers voting when we're the ones that have to pay to go to the Hall of Fame and go visit? And these writers, they get the opportunity to pick these players, and they base it on personality and, if they were nice to them in the locker room instead of what they did on the field.
Well, on Twitter, there's this guy who compiles all the public votes, public ballots that have been out there. So I'm looking at their the latest tracker. As of right now, 37.8% of the known ballots have been public, and only Scott Rowland and Todd Helton has the necessary 75% to get in. Beltran's at 57.7%, and who knows with all the non-public votes what's going to happen. Those are the two I figured would go in. My prediction is Fred McGriff, but then we know he's going in anyway because he voted by the veterans for me.
Billy Wagner.
Wagner, yeah, he has a chance.
We're getting into a time now where the steroid era was a huge factor. The next couple of years is going to be right that these guys who were part of the steroid era are still going to be trying to get in, and I don't think they're going to get in. I think maybe it was John Heyman that voted for Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins is not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I know.
If David Wright is not a Hall of Famer, and David Wright had better stats with less at bats than Jimmy Rollins did, and I know Jimmy Rollins won the World Series, but Jimmy Rollins is not a Hall of Famer.
No.
Come on.
Yeah. No, of course not. Billy Wagner, by the way, right now he's 73.2%, so he has a shot. He might make it.
I have a problem with that though. How can Billy Wagner get in ahead of John Franco then? Franco's the all-time left-handed leader in saves. Well, how do you bring his numbers are almost, they're very close to Franco's. How do you put Wagner in? You don't put Franco in. I don't understand. And it's not because he was a Met. I don't understand that.
I think it's all the other statistics, not just the saves. It's the strikeouts per 9 innings and all the other analytics that go along with it.
Yeah, I did
analytics has becoming big.
Last-minute research on these Hall of Fame candidates, potential Hall of Fame inductees, and let's just say the list is underwhelming. The names you guys mentioned, and he's probably going to get in, but I never, when I saw Scott Rowland play, thought of him as a Hall of Famer. Very good player, definitely in the Hall of very, very good player. Jimmy Rollins also the Hall of very, very good player. The two guys I could make a case for would be Todd Helton. I know he played half of his games in Colorado, but he had 10 seasons where he averaged 30 to 35 home runs. I think he hit 300 all 10 seasons. He had a tremendous career. And the other guy, and because of the team he played on, I hate to say this, but I could definitely make a case for Andrew Jones being a Hall of Famer. And I looked at his offensive statistics, and they were considerably better than I thought. I know he had that one season where he hit the 51 home runs, but he had a bunch of 30, 35 plus home run seasons as well. And I know that he was on a team that won the division every year. He was a big part of it. So to me, if Helton and Jones make it in, I've got no problem with that. I don't think Jones is going to make it. It looks like Helton might just make it. And I definitely, Gary, agree with you. To me, Billy Wagner is not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, if you're gonna put him in, I think you have to put Franco in too. But Franco never got the love that Wagner's getting, and I Scott Rowland, I don't see him as a Hall of Famer either, to be honest with you.
We had this discussion in previous years, because if Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer, and I know their WAR statistics are significantly different, but if Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer, Jeff Kent is a Hall of Famer too.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Jeff Kent is a Hall of Famer in my estimation. You know what he did in his numbers. But you know, it's an argument that we all have. Fred McGriff, as you said, Jeff got in. Good to see that. I was a little disappointed. I thought Dale Murphy might get in. Had some of the best years ever in the history of the game.
Dick Allen, he should have gotten in.
Dick Allen is a lot of. I still think Keith Hernandez probably should get in.
He should have gotten in.
Hall of Fame.
Although he wasn't eligible for this ballot because, and the Veterans Committee ballot this past one because it was only the 80s forward. It wasn't anybody who started in the 70s. So maybe next year.
Maybe whenever the ballot turns around.
And
I
Anthony,
think
like
the
you said about what you said about the writers and their bias, I'm sure that plays a big role in why Jeff Kent isn't even going to sniff the Hall of Fame. Because Jeff, what percentage does he have so far? I bet it's under 50%.
It's less than that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Anthony?
Yeah, I think the issue with Andrew Jones is his last his last 6 years, he didn't hit higher than 222. I think that totally kills his chances. I mean, he was one of the most dominant players for a while, and then those last 6 years kind of just faded away. He couldn't hit anymore, and his defense wasn't great. He was kind of
that old, is he? Was he?
No. He stopped playing when he was 35.
Oh, that's young.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, interesting take on that. And I want to thank all of you guys for taking your time out of your schedule to come on tonight. Anybody have any closing thoughts they'd like to give? Jeff?
I think it's going to be a good year. It might not be the 101 wins, and you know what? Nobody should be disappointed by that. It's still going to be a good year. Get into playoffs, anything will happen.
Barry?
Like always, this was a rip. I always have fun doing these roundtables. And Anthony, I think you have a chance to be the Lou Gehrig to Len's Wally Pip, because this was a lot of fun. I've listened to your podcast on occasion, and I really enjoy it, and I will make sure to listen to it more often. And Gary and Jeff, as always, I had a great time, and I wish the Mets another solid season with a little better ending, and the best of luck to Wayne Randazzo as well on his new venture as the play-by-play man for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or whatever they're calling themselves these days.
You mean this week? Anthony.
Hey, I really enjoyed Wayne. I know I saw him get a lot of flack, but I thought Wayne was pretty good on the radio. I'm really upset that he's leaving now. But good luck to him. Like you said, Barry, good luck to him in Anaheim, and now he's got a TV deal. I think after being on, what was it, Apple TV, that kind of set it off because he was the best commentator that they had out of everyone else that was there. But
exactly right.
That's exciting. Jeff, like what you said, there was 2 times in my lifetime that I thought that the Mets were possibly going to win it all. 2006 and this year. I mean, I really did think that they were going to win this year after going. I've never seen a team play like this, in my lifetime. I was too young for 88, and I was born 2 weeks after 86. So I didn't get to enjoy any of that stuff. And when they lost, I guess it kind of put things in perspective for me that, play well, get to the postseason and then take it from there. So, I'm not going to get too crazy over what the team has done and what they haven't done. Let's see it play out. Let's see what they can do. And hopefully it ends up with us winning a world championship, finally for the first time since 1986. But this was a blast. Thank you, Gary, for having me on. Appreciate you, Barry, as well. And Jeff, Jeff's also been on the podcast before. So I enjoy all you guys, and I appreciate you for, letting me pinch hit here today. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome, and I want to thank you all. And though Anthony, you just made me feel old by saying that you were born after the '86 World Series. Barry and I are old enough to remember the '69 World Series and the '86 World Series and the '88 playoffs and 2000 and 2015. Of course, everybody remembers. But thank you so much. So don't forget Jeff Cohen, Baseball and Barbecue. It's a terrific podcast. They talk about baseball and they talk about barbecue and what could be better. You do get a little hungry though towards the end of their podcast, so that's a warning. Anthony Rivera, great podcast, Subway To Shea. Please check it off and listen to it, and maybe even I'll be on there one day. I don't know.
I got you. I have you on my list. I have you on my list, Gary.
And Barry, is always the Maven of the Mets. Thank you so much for coming on. And I want to thank all of you for listening. And don't forget to listen to the podcast. And if you're watching it on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. The people at Google like that, and so do I. So please check us out on YouTube. And if you're listening, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Play and wherever you get your podcast. We're there. So please listen. Let's get those numbers up this year. We have a good year. Let's get them up higher. Everybody's numbers should go up with people going back to work and whatever. So please hit those subscribe buttons. That way you'll always know when there's a new edition of Mets Musings coming out. So until next time, remember to keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And I'm Gary Mack, and I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.